Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Defy Me, a Dragon's Love Curves novel by Aidy Award. Narrated by Brion and Stephanie Rose. Chapter 1. Jett. Dragons and Other Good Luck Charms. Fucking dragons and their fucking mates, who were all beautiful, brave women, each of which he had more than a little crush on. If he hadn't seen what finding a soulmate had done for those stupid wyvern bastards with his own eyes, he wouldn't be such a miserable asshole. Now all he could think about was getting a soul shard, finding a mate, and getting the boost in power that came with. It was the only way to save his brothers, save himself. You do one little favor for the most powerful warriors on the planet, and they think your soul is redeemable. No matter how much Jett wanted that to be true, it was never going to happen. He poured himself another drink and downed it, liking the burn. It wasn't as hot as his dragon fire, or as satisfying, but for some God's forsaken reason, he came to this little pub night after night, waiting on that damned magic dealer to return, and in the meantime tried to get drunk. No one here tried to manipulate him, or wanted anything from him. It was nice and quiet, and as mind-numbing as ancient Latin. For decades, all his years spent in hell, he'd wished for normalcy. Now that he had it, he was miserable. Maybe he should pick a fight. At least that would be better than crying in his Jägermeister. He couldn't get into it with a human, though. They were too damn fragile. How did these stinking animals even survive in a world where monsters like demon dragons were real? Where monsters like he himself were real? No. If he wanted to work off some steam, he needed to find one of those creatures of the night. His senses told them that the group at the nearest table had no powers, although one of them seriously looked like an ogre. Most of the people who lived in this little dot on the map that was Glückstadt, Germany, were nothing. That's why it was a good place to hide out. A different kind of presence nipped at the edges of his spidey senses. Something definitely not human, but with a familiar acrid scent of fire and brimstone. He could find the creature and have some fun hunting it. With his parentage, there wasn't anything hell-born he couldn't catch. But it might be more entertaining to see what it was doing here before he killed it. The door of the pub blew open, and a blonde woman with a glow of something supernatural haloed around her rushed in like the wind had shoved her through the doorway. Jett glanced around to see if anyone else in here noticed how she was lit up like a damned star in the gold night sky. A few patrons looked her way, but only because of the disturbance. None were taken aback by who or what she was. Not that he had a clue what kind of being hid under her skin. He couldn't be the only one seeing her aura of shiny power. He'd bet a dragon's hoard that whatever beast was here knew and was lying in wait for her. This should be interesting. Jett picked up his stein and took a long swig, waiting for this scene to play out. If he was lucky, the big bad wolf would make trouble. The woman pushed her hair out of her face, save one errant strand that she gave a well-practiced blow and then tucked behind her ear. My oh my. He'd never wanted to be a piece of hair so badly in his life. That mouth was something. She tugged on her t-shirt that had, shit, a unicorn of all things on it. Any grown woman who wore something like that had an innocence about her that he needed to stay far, far away from. Her shirt refused to stay in place, and it crept back up, showing the thinnest sliver of skin between it and her jeans. That tiny swath of her bare side had his cock standing up and taking notice, which was strange. He had seen, tasted, caressed, and spanked a whole lot more flesh than that. Jett readjusted his legs, spreading them wide under the table to give his brand new erection some relief from the zipper of his jeans. Then he leaned back in his chair waiting for the action to start. And it would. The masked hell's beast had taken notice of her presence, too. Blondie caught him staring at her and headed straight to his table. Uh-oh. She was going to bring the trouble to him. Something he both wanted and didn't need in his life. He'd been laying low for a while, ever since he'd helped Cage, the stupid gold wyvern, rescue his mermaid mate from hell and gotten his own ass kicked by the black dragon in the process. Jett would be back for his father's head soon enough, once he had what he needed to free his brethren. Blondie made her way through the rest of the patrons and plonked down in the chair next to him. Not across, not on the other side, but so close his arm brushed up against hers as she picked up his half-full mug of beer and took 2, 3, 4 long gulping swallows. His cock once again was jealous of an inanimate object. Jett watched her fascinated. He didn't exactly radiate friendly come-sit-with-me vibes. The opposite, if his entire life up until now was any proof. She plonked the now empty stein down on the table and burped. "Pretend to be my boyfriend." She looked back at the door, then at him, her lavender eyes sparkling. "You know my big, bad, very possessive boyfriend?" He'd never in his life seen anyone with eyes like hers. They were mesmerizing, but not enough that he was willing to do something dumb, like try to protect her from whatever was chasing her. "And why should I do that?" "Don't ask. Just kiss me." She glanced back at the door again, and the next second it flew open again. Then she slid her fingers into his hair and planted her lips on his. Jett caught a glimpse of the 2 men with too many muscles not to be supernatural beings shove their way into the room, and he didn't care even a little bit. She touched her mouth to his, and the world exploded into fucking rainbows. There could be dragon warriors come to lop off his head, or the black dragon himself hunting him down, but none of the above would get him to pay any attention. Because this was the best fucking kiss he'd ever experienced in his entire miserable life. And all she'd done so far was brush her lips across his in a chaste tease. Not that he spent a lot of time going around kissing people. He'd spent more of his above-ground time with the succubi of Gestiana's coven, who tried to lure him into their beds, rather than looking for bed partners of his own. Not a single talented succubus had even come close to blowing his mind like this soft, supple, sweet woman licking over his bottom lip, asking him to open for her. Her eyes fluttered shut, and the tiniest whimpered moan from her hit him low and hard in the gut. He wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her in closer, wanting to feel the heat of her body touching his. She was warm and soft, her ample curves molded to his hard angles. His fingers found their way to that bit of skin he'd been dying to touch. She was so damn soft, so fucking sweet. He didn't do soft or sweet. He took what he wanted when he wanted it. But not with her. He would give this woman anything she wanted, any time that she wanted it. He'd give her everything if he could, not that he had much to give. The sound of a throat being cleared tried its best to break into Jett's living fantasy. Damn it, this goddess was mere centimeters away from pushing her tongue into his mouth so he could finally taste her, and some asshole was going to interfere. He would simply have to kill them. He very gently broke the kiss, but moved his lips only far enough away from hers to speak. "Go away, we're busy." Jett breathed in her scent. She was snow and sunshine, morning dew on fluffy kittens. Shit, where had that even come from? Whatever spell she was working on him had turned his brain into mush. Kittens! He didn't even like grumpy cat, much less mewling little furballs. Blondie had reopened her eyes, but her lips were parted, waiting for him to kiss her once again. He brushed that strand of hair off her face and pushed a hand gently into her locks. His body said take, but his mind, and something else he couldn't identify, told him to treat her like a fragile glass ornament. This person did not understand they were endangering their own life. What part of go away don't you understand? The interrupter, who turned out to be a barmaid named Ninzi, who always served him here, rolled her eyes and whispered, "You two might want to take that somewhere else, because those mermen are going to throw a whole lot more than cold water on you." Jett glanced at the men. Murs. He never did like those guys. Way too full of themselves. Hold up. How did the barmaid know they were not just a couple of strong-arms? He'd never detected anything supernatural about her. Maybe she was a witch who used a dampening spell. He'd be rethinking his choice in Watering Hole if that were true. He had no love for magical women of any kind, except whatever the woman in his arms was. He still had no idea, only that he wanted and needed her, needed to keep her safe. "Come on, sweet thing, let's get you out of here." There was a back entrance he'd used a time or two to avoid other supernaturals. His guest house wasn't far. They could continue their kiss, and he'd do all the fun and naughty things a pretend boyfriend should do to her there. "Thanks, but you've provided enough of a distraction. Sorry," she shrugged. "You don't have to apologize. I thoroughly enjoyed it. In fact, he'd like to do it a whole lot more." "Oh, I'm not sorry about that." She pecked him on the cheek and then twisted out of his arms and ducked. A fat, scaly fist slammed into his face in the exact spot her lips had been only a second before. He fell backward, bowling over a whole row of wooden bar stools. Very few beings got the drop on him. It was how he'd stayed alive in the depths of hell as long as he had. He laid on the floor for a second, wondering what the fuck had just happened. He'd honed his fighting skills even more than what his demon of a mother had taught him. Living among succubi and incubi wasn't exactly a walk in the park, and those bloodsuckers had been good training partners. Living with a coven of sex slaves was better than feigning that he was a mindless drone under the Black Witch's spell. For example, if he was bespelled, he wouldn't be able to do this. Jett blew a burst of flames at his attacker's face, lighting the merman's blue hair on fire. The damn fool slapped at his head and ran around the pub, unwittingly stoking the flames. Dumbass. Now where had Blondie gone? An all-out brawl broke out in the pub, and if he didn't find her quickly, she might get hurt. He jumped up on top of a table and surveyed the room for her almost luminescent hair and lush body. Aha, there she was. He expected to find her hiding in a corner, but she was moving through the fracas like a ninja. She bobbed and weaved, spinning around, under and past the fists being thrown. Not only could the woman kiss, she could move. Not a single punch even came close to her. While everyone else was diving into the fray, she made her way to the door. Except there were two very large burly men engaged in battle in front of the exit. No way she was getting out that way unless he helped her. Jett jumped over tables and chairs and even considered pulling out his wings to fly over everyone else's heads so he could get to her faster. She was within a meter of the men now, and it looked even less likely that they were simply going to let her pass. She paused a half a meter away from them and crossed her arms. Behind her, a very loud screaming woman jumped on someone else's back and pulled at his hair, steering him like a pony right toward Blondie. They were going to barrel into her, and she was standing there staring at the two men blocking the door. Shit. She was trapped, and they were all going to collide. She would be crushed. Jett put on a burst of speed and jumped off someone's shoulders, flying through the air toward her and the oncoming disaster. As he careened over the tops of the brawlers, time slowed. Blondie turned and looked up at him, winked, and moved toward the men. She reached her hand forward, pulling something out of the bigger of the two men's pocket, and slipped between them and out the door. Jett crashed into the men, who attacked him for breaking in on their fight. It took him a good 15 minutes to beat them off and extricate himself from the pub. By then there was no sight of his little kissing ninja thief. He didn't need to be able to see her to find her. He had her soft, intricate scent, as did whatever other creatures of the night were stalking her. He rubbed his hands together. The chase was on, and it was going to be fun.
Chapter 2. Yvaine. Dragon Ass Inn. Phew, that was a close one. It had taken Yvaine all day to shake those guys off her tail. If she hadn't needed the money so badly, she would have stuck to less menacing tourists to pickpocket. But with the dreary rain all day, the sightseers just weren't out and about. She'd run out of funds yesterday. Or was it the day before? Either way, she hadn't eaten in a million years, and those two guys didn't seem to mind standing around in the rain. They also hadn't even tried to secure their wallets. It was like they'd never been outside their own homes before. But they spoke a language that was far from German, Spanish, or English, and the pickings were just too easy. She hated stealing. But she also hated sleeping in the rain and eating trash. She did what she had to. She survived. Except they'd caught her, which was a new one. Yvaine could lift wallets like a Charles Dickens street urchin. Sure, lots of people had that skill. Her superpower was that they never, ever noticed. She could take their cash and replace their wallet before they caught on. She knew firsthand how much it sucked to not have any form of ID when far from home, family, or friends. Not that she had a family, or friends, or a home. No one had ever taught her to pickpocket. No, she'd learned really useful skills like reciting Hail Marys and Our Fathers while getting her knuckles rapped for sharing her porridge with the new kid who'd come to breakfast too late to get his own portion. Fucking porridge. She'd been about 10 seconds from being caught by them when that little pub had called to her like a lighthouse in a storm. Like, literally. Out of all the businesses in the alley, that one had shined like a black light at a rave. She'd learned to trust a gift like that, even if she didn't understand. Running into the broody, hunka-hunka burning love was an added bonus. He'd saved her ass, too, in more ways than he knew. Not only had he unwittingly helped her escape, he was also paying for a warm place to sleep tonight, and the biggest veggie burger and fries she could find. She pulled out the cash from the wallet she'd lifted off of him. There hadn't been time to slip it back. She'd blamed that on the kiss. The one that had distracted her so much, she almost hadn't cared if she'd gotten caught. She tossed the rest of the contents into the nearest trash can. Couldn't be a litter bug. What kind of person carries 3,000 euros around in his wallet? He didn't look like some rich, entitled trust fund baby. He barely looked like he'd bathed in the last week. He'd sure tasted good, though. Spicy, like hot cinnamon. She touched her lips, remembering the feeling of his mouth on hers. She could check first kiss off the list. A shiver that she enjoyed a little too much snuck across the fine hairs on the back of her neck. Or maybe that was the touch of snow beginning to fall. Must be the snow. The other wallet had only a couple of euros, but it had a Eurail pass that would sure come in handy. After a good night's sleep and something to eat, pastries and Weissbier. She was getting the hell out of here. This town was done for her, and she hadn't found any clues or answers anyway. Calling themselves the Luck Town was like false advertising. It was just plain dumb to stick around any longer. Now to find a place to stay tonight. She walked a little faster, putting more distance between her and the bar brawl. The crisp night air felt good whipping through her hair, like she was running in a wide open field. Not that she spent a lot of time running. Well, not the jogging kind anyway. Only the away and hiding kind of running. She shouldn't be out in the open like this right now anyway. She'd had that sickening feeling of being watched for far too long to ignore it.
"Hey, you! Come back here, you little thief!"
She didn't wait to see if it was the two men she'd been running from already, or the man she'd kissed. Either party was going to be pissed. Time to go. Again. She bolted off the main square and down a maze of cobbled streets. She couldn't run for long before she'd run out of steam, so she needed to find a place to duck into and hide in the next 20 seconds. She headed toward an area advertising hostels and ghost houses. Since it wasn't tourist season, most of them should have a private room vacant for her. She passed 2 hostels that looked a bit too run down for her to feel secure, and then spotted one she didn't remember seeing before. It had one of those old-school wooden signs swinging above the doorway. A big dragon was carved into the wood and painted with at least 20 brilliant colors. A quick glance over her shoulder didn't show her pursuer anywhere. Good. She was already holding her side and gulping in air. A dark shadow blipped through the corner of her peripheral vision, but not on the street or by one of the buildings. It had been up on the rooftop. Must be some kind of a bird, although a big one. An owl or a bat. Her shoulders involuntarily shook. Whatever it was, it gave her the creeps. She needed to get inside immediately, if not sooner. Well, don't stand out there all night, sugar. Come in and get warm. I've got glühwein on the stove." The most beautiful woman Yvonne had ever seen smiled and held open the door to the little inn and waved her inside. The woman was too friendly by half, more than the normal business hawker. Why? What did she want from Yvonne besides her money? Everyone out here in the real world always wanted something from her. This small inn did feel safer than any other place to stay on the block. She wasn't sure why. She trusted her instincts, and so far, they had kept her from being taken advantage of. But she was getting really mixed signals here. Safety, weirdness, calm vibes, but also the sense of someone who was ready for a fight. Which was extra strange, because this woman was soft and curvy, with long, Mother Nature flowing hair and a soft smile. Not exactly the warrior type. A tall, very handsome man, who reminded her of Jason Momoa, but with a prosthetic arm, stuck his head out the door and over the woman's shoulder.
"Ooh, you found her."
Yvonne took a big ol' step back. Uh-oh. She'd gotten really good at hiding these past few months. She did not want to be found by anyone. Who were these people? Who was looking for her? She narrowed her eyes at the couple and opened her mouth to tell them thanks, but no thanks. Instead of words coming out, she burped. Holy hell. There was that beer she'd downed back to haunt her. It wasn't just that, though. A gurgle sounded from her belly and nausea haunted her insides. The woman rolled her eyes and waved the guy off. "Don't mind my mate. He means I found a paying customer. It's been a slow week." Mate? She must mean husband, right? Yvonne's vision went a little fuzzy, and she couldn't quite think straight. Husband. That was a weird word. Bend. The woman wrapped her arm around Yvonne's shoulder and guided her toward the front door. "I have a very nice room all ready for you. Big, comfy bed, plenty of space, and blackout curtains so no one will be able to see in." She winked. "And we'll get you fed, too. Soak up some of that beer." Yvonne had a super weird vibe from these two, but not uncomfortable. That sent a 4-alarm fire worth of warnings off in her head. Something was wrong. Trust no one. A shot of adrenaline hit her right in the heart, pumping through her veins like a cold shower, clearing her head. She still felt unsteady on her feet, and that doorway was looking very enticing, if only to lean on. Holy hell. She'd been drugged. The innkeepers hadn't even touched her. It couldn't be them. The beer. But Mr. McBroodypants hadn't known she was coming, or that she'd pick up his drink and down it, which meant someone had been trying to drug him. That didn't seem plausible either. She couldn't imagine what anyone would do with a big, muscly, passed-out dude like him. She was back to the couple looking at her expectantly from the shelter of their doorway. Yvonne wavered on her feet again. The flash of darkness flew overhead again, and even the woman lifted her eyes to the sky. "Come on, dear. It's getting dark out." It was 9 o'clock at night. In the winter. It had been dark for hours. One more reason she should keep on running. Except for that very distinct feeling she was being watched. Hunted. By something malevolent. Her head wasn't on straight, and if she did look for another place to take shelter, she couldn't guarantee she would make it another block down the street. Either she went inside and hoped for the best, that these people weren't responsible for her current state of weirdness, or she risked being seen by the Watcher, or worse, captured by her pickpocket victims, or the thing that was definitely not a bat. 2, or was it 3, sucky choices? What was new? Her body decided for her because she lost her footing and pitched forward. Her vision tunneled, but she refused to lose consciousness. The man caught her and swooped his prosthetic arm under her knees, lifting her up and carrying her inside. The door slammed shut behind them. The room was warm and comforting, and the cold that had seeped into her lifted a smidge. It would be so easy to just close her eyes and fall asleep in these big, strong arms. Strong arms that could protect her, keep her safe. Yvonne shook her head. No, no, no. She was the only one who could keep herself safe. I'm okay. You can put me down now. To her surprise, he did, holding his hands out on either side of her like she was a toddler just learning to walk.
You all right there, kiddo?
Yeah, fine. Thanks. Just tired. She was hella tired and still woozy. She'd feel better after she ate. Do you have room service by any chance? No need for that. Your dinner is all ready. The woman indicated to a coffee table in front of a fireplace. On a tray in the middle was what looked like a veggie burger, fries, a huge green salad, a plate full of pastries, and a bubbling glass of Weissbier. Yum. She plopped down into the nearest chair and tucked right in. She couldn't even remember the last time she'd had fresh veggies like this, and the burger must be some secret blend of 12 herbs and spices, because it was like crack cocaine, and way too delicious. I think you overspelled her, heart of my heart. She nearly passed out.
Desperate times. He was circling. We couldn't let him get to her.
That sure sounded like they were talking about her. Krifrin from who? Don't talk with your mouth full, dearest. Grr. She hated being told what to do. Fine. She chewed, swallowed, and took another bite. This one slightly smaller so she could be understood while talking with her mouth full. Couldn't chew. Let chew. Who? You aren't supposed to be able to hear us talking about you. That's strange. The woman looked at her husband and frowned. Did you do something to her? Yeah. Did he? He shook his head.
Nope. That's all her, babe. I told you she was special.
Yvonne narrowed her eyes and popped a couple of fries into her mouth, watching the interaction between them. She wasn't entirely sure why she wasn't getting up and Houdiniing her way out of here. The things they were saying? She should be afraid. Very afraid. She wasn't even a little bit, possibly for the first time in her entire life. Maybe it was the drugs, or maybe she was simply exhausted from being on the run and not finding the answers she'd been looking for. Looking and not finding any answers for far too long. Probably that one. The woman folded her arms unconvinced and glanced at Yvonne. She waved her hands at the pile of French fries that were almost gone. More appeared. Literally bottomless fries. Rock on. I can see that she is, but are you sure she's the one? The woman looked Yvonne up and down, like she was trying to figure out who or what she was. Just an orphan looking for answers. Nothing else. Nothing to see here. Yvonne ate another fry. The one what? The woman frowned. Stop doing that. The man got a big old grin, and Yvonne had the feeling he didn't get the one-up on his wife very often.
Yes, she's the only one. Give it to her.
Whatever it was, Yvonne wanted it. Badly. Why? Jiminy Cricket, this whole situation was like a dream. She stood up and extended her hand, waiting for the woman to give her the it. Fine. The woman wrinkled her nose and lifted a super shiny and sparkly necklace from under the neckline of her dress. She dangled the chain in the air and then laid it over Yvonne's head. It sparked like it was electric, and a bright white light filled the room for the blink of an eye. Whoa! What did you give me? Yvonne lifted the charm from her chest and stared down at it. It was a shiny black dragon with a bright pink and green thistle wrapped around it. Pretty. I'm still not sure this is a good idea, but sometimes we do things we don't want to for the ones we love. The woman sighed. The man wrapped his arm around her and kissed her on the top of the head.
Thank you, love. You'll see. It will work out. He's got good in him, even if you don't believe it yet.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?